because we offer 7 products, you can come in, you could buy Campaign Monitor, and you could find that that's not the right platform for you. We could easily migrate you to one of our other 6 platforms. So there's no need to kind of break your contract or, go through a painful RFP process.
Hi, Andrew. Welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Hey, George. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Andrew, we're all huge fans of Campaign Monitor at Uplas, so thank you so much for being here. Lots to discuss, and I'm very, very keen for this podcast. But before we get into that, 2020 has been a pretty wild year. We're just checking in with the Campaign Monitor team and yourself. How are you all doing, and is everything stable and okay?
Yeah, thanks for asking. We're doing fine, doing well. Definitely, better than a lot of other people. We're very fortunate in that, Campaign Monitor is a fairly distributed global organization. We have team members, mainly in Sydney, but we also have, a team in San Francisco and Nashville, in London. So we're pretty used to kind of using Zoom and talking to people across the globe. And so it wasn't too hard for us to transition into kind of a post-COVID kind of way of working. So I think we've done pretty well. And the team obviously, I think, probably collaborates and talks even more often than we used to, if anything.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we found that with a lot of the companies that we've been talking to on this podcast, that those who were remote prior to COVID, that the transition was very seamless, and those who had to scramble, it was a bit more of a challenge. But I mean, that's great to hear. So, Campaign Monitor is an email service provider, and as I said, one of our favorites. For those who don't know much about Campaign Monitor, and as well the umbrella company CM Group, would you mind just giving us a sort of a brief history and explanation of the company?
Yeah, sure. I can kind of summarize that for you. So for Campaign Monitor itself, that was started in Sydney by 2 guys called Ben and Dave. They owned their own digital marketing agency. I think they created it straight out of university, probably. And they basically were serving their customers, kind of building websites, doing SEO, PPC, and email marketing. And they found that there was no good email marketing solution on the market aimed at agencies like them. And so they actually decided to build their own kind of minimal viable product for their own customers. That eventually started growing, and eventually the revenue of that product outgrew the agency. And so they kind of concentrated on that product, which then became Campaign Monitor, and now is used by thousands of companies around the world. So that was early 2000s. In around I think it was 2014, they got a lot of funding. I think it was 250 million from Insight Ventures. They opened a San Francisco office, which is where I'm based. Big sales, marketing team. Definitely sold to larger and larger customers because of that. And then eventually we merged with a company called Emma and Delivra, and became the CM Group. And now we have 7 brands under our umbrella. So it's kind of like a family of email marketing products. And we have kind of niche products and enterprise products. We can kind of serve different customers based on their needs. So if you're an enterprise e-commerce customer, say a product called Sail Through would probably be a good fit for you. Whereas if you're a nonprofit, Campaign Monitor is probably better. Or if you're a university, then Emma might be the best fit. So that's kind of where we're at today. It's kind of a suite of products aimed at different types of email marketers.
And just going from a sort of a product ideation or a product market fit, I mean, it makes sense that it was a solution based idea. They were trying to find a solution, and that sort of self perpetuated. And obviously there was it really sort of fit the need of a lot of agencies out there. So great to hear. And as you said, you've got the sort of brands like Emma and whatnot. So each one of those in the umbrella sort of serves a different audience in a way.
Yeah, we've had to do some work there to kind of figure out which brand should concentrate in which vertical and which size of customer. Emma and Campaign Monitor, before we kind of became one company, they were actually very similar. If you looked at our websites, they said the same things. If you looked at the product features, they actually look pretty similar on the surface. And so we had to do a lot of work and kind of digging to figure out, like, how can we reposition these products or position them differently in the market? It turned out that both products kind of naturally had different strengths and weaknesses. Emma, for example, is really good for distributed organizations. So if you have 100 or even 1,000 end users and you want to do things like share assets like images or approve mailings or just see what's going on in your agency account, Emma is great for that. Campaign Monitor can do some of those things, but it's definitely not as powerful when it comes to managing users as Emma. So Campaign Monitor is more of the general SMB kind of self-service platform, and then Emma's been repositioned as a more niche platform aimed at distributed organizations, kind of like restaurants, gyms, universities, things like that.
And there must be an interesting conversation or a challenge there where obviously, Emma and, as an example, Emma and Campaign Monitor, they're both ESPs and they serve a certain purpose, but how do you tweak the features and whatnot to cater to those different audiences? Is that a very labor intensive conversation and something that's always ongoing? Or could you share a little bit about the thought process in not necessarily the specifics, but more about the mindset in how you sort of treat these different companies, I guess, within the CM group?
Yeah, so it took us a while to figure it out. And I think we've only really recently kind of figured out how to do that ourselves. It's not something that it necessarily came natural to us because we've all come from individual companies and all kind of come together as this larger group. And so one thing we did late last year, which I think was super helpful, was create product missions for each separate product missions for each product in the portfolio. And so each mission is specific and kind of gives the product, the marketing, and the sales team kind of a North Star, kind of a guiding light. And that helps inform kind of what features we build, who we sell to, and kind of why we're building each product. Yeah, we've kind of looked at like who the customers are, who we want to target, and then created these like very specific missions that kind of help inform what we build and why we build it. And I think without that, we would kind of be a bit lost. We might be duplicating functionality or features, and we wouldn't have a good idea of who we're building these products for. Because you're right, they are at the end of the day, they are all email marketing products, so they all have some similarities.
So I want to delve into a little bit more about your role because I think there's some really interesting stuff to unpack there. But before that, I just want to talk a little bit more about this evolution of Campaign Monitor and not necessarily specifics, but how do you evolve the products? Do you sort of take user feedback and integrate that in? You've obviously the team has its own preconceived ideas on what needs to change and evolve. Is it a combination of things, or could you explain a little bit more about how you actually sort of acquire that data to take things forward?
Yeah, for sure. We do a lot of surveys. If you're a Campaign Monitor customer, you may be receiving some of these surveys, and that's from both existing customers. So we definitely talk to existing customers. We send them surveys, and we do kind of more extensive interviews with them as well, just to see what they like, what they don't like, what we're missing, and how they generally feel about the product. We review that on kind of a quarterly basis with the leadership team, and obviously the product managers and the product team is monitoring that fairly closely just to inform kind of what the roadmap looks like and what we actually build. My role kind of flows into that pretty nicely. I look at the entire market and the competitive landscape pretty closely. That's a big part of my role. And so not only are we looking at kind of what customers are saying and what they're asking for, but what are competitors building, where are they going, and trying to kind of figure out what the market is doing in total as well. So it's not just talking to customers. There's a lot more to it. And then I also work pretty closely with the sales team. So figuring out why we might win a customer or why we might not win a potential customer is a big part of it as well. So kind of win-loss analysis, looking at just closely, like, do we lose a deal because of an integration, or was it a missing feature, or was it price or something else that comes into it as well?
Makes complete sense. So we touched on your role a little bit here, Director of Product Strategy and Marketing Intelligence. That sounds really interesting, and I'd love to unpack it a little bit more. So could you give us a bit of a top line overview of your role, and then I'll probably start firing a few questions at you because I'm mightily interested. And as you've said, you exist between multiple departments between the marketing, sales, and product team, correct?
Yeah. So the role is Director of Product Strategy and Market Intelligence. And market intelligence is really, the ESP kind of marketing technology part of it. And so I sit in the center of the product team, sales and marketing. Technically, I'm on the product team. I report to the chief product officer. And so I'm aligned pretty closely with kind of the guys who are actually making the product. But I also work very closely on demos with the sales team and kind of helping them win new customers. And then when it comes to marketing, actually working with them on positioning and how we talk about each product. For marketing, it's tough. We have 7 products. Most marketers don't have to market 7 different products that do similar things. It's a tricky thing to do. So my job is really to help them figure out, how do we talk about each product in the market. So it's an interesting job that kind of sits in between those 3 different departments.
And I'd imagine you sort of cycle through the departments depending on what's going on at that particular time. I'm sure you're having meetings consistently with them, but depending on what campaigns or new product, new launches, or all those kind of updates and whatnot, you're sort of cyclically going through these departments, and you're the connective tissue, kind of binding them all together.
Yes, yeah, it's a good way to put it. Definitely ebbs and flows. For the product team, it really is cyclical because it depends on kind of roadmaps, and they'll go through a stage where they're trying to think of new features or come up with new ideas to add to the roadmap. So I'll get involved at that stage, but that's not happening necessarily all the time because the rest of the time they're actually building those features and actually rolling them out and doing lots of other things behind the scenes. With sales, it's pretty constant. Definitely, obviously we're always selling, so I'm always involved in with whatever they're doing and whoever they're selling to. And then marketing, yeah, it depends on what they're doing. Obviously, they are busier sometimes than other times, but they have a pretty regular cadence when it comes to like campaigns and different types of kind of promotions and messaging that they've got going. So, yeah.
Okay. So if we break these down, if you were sort of saying you're at this, let's say for this particular example, you're dealing with the product team, are you coming to them with your marketing intelligence saying, hey, this is what's going on in the market. This is the feedback the sales team's getting. This is what we're seeing in the marketing sort of engagement in social or other data points, and bringing that to them and say, how can we utilize this information to redevelop or reiterate on some of the features of the ESP campaign monitor or the suite of products within the CM group?
Yeah, for them, they rely on me, I'd say mainly for market intelligence. So it's what is MailChimp doing? What is Salesforce doing? What do our key competitors, what are they building? Any new features? We don't necessarily want to copy them or do the same thing, but
You
it's
need to stay
definitely good to
abreast.
know what's going on and what are kind of the industry trends. Like, is everyone building this one product or serving this one type of customer? They need to know that, and they don't necessarily have time to do all that research and kind of look at the market as closely as I do, since that's my key focus for my role. So that's really where I come in and kind of help the product team, I'd say.
And do you find that within these different ESPs and whatnot, these trends come through? I mean, you've been in the industry for a while now, so you've seen sort of trends come and go. Is this, you've obviously take each one on its own merits and whatnot, but do you find that, hey, all our competitors are moving in this direction? Hey, either we need to go there or we need to actively go against the grain to make ourselves different. Could you? It's a very general question because there's no specifics or specific examples, but could you talk a little bit about that decision-making process in when your competitors are doing something? How does Campaign Monitor or the CM Group sort of think about those things?
Yeah, it is a good question, and it's a tricky one because we may see a lot of competitors doing something. Maybe a good example would be implementing support for Google AMP. I'm sure you're familiar with that,
Yeah.
but it enables you to have some
Accelerated mobile page.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and you can kind of do some pretty cool things with email.
Right.
It's like a email specific version of AMP, and there's a number of different email platforms that are now supporting it. I think SparkPost, SendGrid, I can't remember who else, but like a bunch of them are now supporting AMP for email.
Okay.
So should we do that? Should we just do that because our competitors are doing it? Like, is that something that our customers actually want? I think the way that we think about it is you know, we want to do it for the right reasons. We don't want to just do things because our competitors are doing them. And so when it comes to that example, we don't currently have a product that supports Google AMP. I don't see many customers asking for it, and I don't receive many emails that have Google AMP embedded in them yet. I think if it becomes a more widely adopted solution and customers are saying like we have to have AMP um, within like our email builder or something like that, then maybe we'll build it. But we're not going to build it just for like industry buzz or just to say that we have it. It's really got to be something that our customers are looking for, or something that could open up a new market for us. Um, Another one could be like website builders.
Hmm.
MailChimp just launched a website builder. Constant Contact is now selling a website builder. Um,
Not just landing, so separate to just individual landing pages, like a full website.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
MailChimp's offering
Okay.
free domains and everything, and
Wow.
um, we've talked about it internally, but that's just not something that Campaign Monitor is going to offer.
Yeah.
We offer landing pages with some of our other products, but yeah, I don't. We've kind of said, that is not a part of the market that we want to target. We don't want to get into building websites. We don't even have any expertise in that
Yeah.
ourselves. We want to be the best at email marketing. That's kind of where we want to focus. So in that case, we are kind of doing the opposite to some of our biggest competitors.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sort of the jack of all trades, master of none, or that sort of sentiment. But that's very interesting to hear that more. So then taking that information, you've taken all the marketing intelligence and whatnot. You've given that information to the product team, and you've reiterated and worked on some new products and features and whatnot. Then taking that to the marketing team, so now you're giving them the sort of like, hey, this is why people need to use this. This is how we're positioning this in the market. This is all the data that we acquired and why this is valuable. And here's the value proposition to our customers. Is that the sort of process here, or is there anything more that I'm missing there?
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it. I'd say the other part would be maybe sales enablement, like training the sales team on kind of how to use the new feature and why it's actually valuable to
Okay.
prospects and
Yeah.
customers and why they should actually use it. I get involved in that quite a bit as well. Um, and then there's kind of like full circle the review of the feature itself and kind of what's the adoption, how many customers are actually using it, are
Okay.
people what are people saying about it, do they love it, do they hate it, is there something that we did wrong or missed. There is that kind of uh, feedback that we do get eventually from customers as well, after the feature's been launched for a little while.
And this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, in how much of an interesting age we're in, where, in years gone by, maybe you released a some kind of physical product in maybe 3, 4 decades ago. You would have to all be relying on anecdotal evidence. Whilst now, I always think about Netflix. They have all these. I'm sure they have all these analytics, like these types of movies do the best, and okay, we need to keep making horror movies, or these rom-coms are doing great, and the average view time is there. So, in and amongst all that, all those surveys and stuff you do, you guys, I would imagine, have an amazing pool of data to draw upon, and that as well is a huge part of the process of reiterating and building these products.
Yeah, definitely. We have so many internal tools, especially across kind of the portfolio that we have. Each company that joins us has their own set of tools as well. So we do
Yeah.
try to standardize it after a while.
Okay.
So we use Looker as kind of like our dashboard kind of tool, similar to Tableau, which is where you can kind of see, like you can log in, you can see stats on kind of volume and trends in the app. It's more like a high level, like business metrics. And the product team has their own tool. I think I don't know who they're using, but it's definitely a tool that helps them see what people do in the app.
Yeah.
It's not on an individual level. It's kind of like overall, how many people use the email builder, for example, or how many people are uploading a list, or you can even see journeys. So someone signs up. What is the first thing they typically do, and what do we want them to do? So we have access to a ton of data, which helps inform kind of in-app messaging, or the sign-up experience, all the way through to kind of what happens if someone stops using the app. Do we need to send them an email? Do we need to have some kind of notification somewhere? We have access to all that stuff, and I'm not personally in that stuff all the time, but definitely get exposed to it, and the product team is definitely using it on a daily basis.
Yep. So I think, talking about the acquisition of brands, we went through a merger last year, and it was just two companies merging, and it was a wild time. So having multiple brands, I think, do you have 7 brands under the CM group? There must be, I can't even imagine some of the massaging and consolidation of best practices across all these entities. But can we talk a little bit about the sort of a bit more of a top level discussion around CM group, and how does it sort of look at the acquisition of brands, and nothing specific here, but maybe some just sort of more thought processes, or the vision behind what CM Group is?
Yeah, we're so new. We've really been figuring this stuff out ourselves. And so we came together. We were 3 brands, and then we kind of acquired a few more. We may acquire more in the future as well. There's a lot of different email platforms. I think there's over 400, possibly 500 in the world globally. So there's definitely room for a lot of consolidation, and it's no secret there's going to be a lot of consolidation in this market.
Yep.
And so we've kind of put together some thinking around kind of like, why would you buy from CM Group? Like, what's the point? Why have all these products that do similar things in one group? And I kind of touched on it before. Each product, although it's an email marketing product, uh, they are targeted at different levels of sophistication, different verticals, and they have different features within them as well. And so what we've found is, for email marketers or anyone buying technology, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of risk involved in buying marketing technology. You may sign up for an enterprise marketing cloud and find that it's completely the wrong solution for you. That happens all the time. I don't know if you've ever gone through that yourself, but
I
we talk,
haven't.
yeah,
It sounds horrible.
we talk to customers all day that are basically like, how do I get out of this, like Salesforce or Oracle contract, or whatever it is?
And those are so
So
sticky, those companies. Like, it's once you're in, you're real. I'm a few friends who work for a couple of those companies, and one of their sort of, I guess, not points of, or just the stickiness. It's not easy to get away.
No, and that's on purpose. I think Oracle, especially, is kind of known for that,
Yeah.
like getting deeply integrated and making it just really hard to move off those
Mm.
platforms. But um, I did write down a stat here. So Litmus did a survey and found that 28% of brands are dissatisfied with their ESP. That's
Wow.
a pretty high percentage to me.
It's almost a
I know
third.
I've definitely in the past, I used to work client side before this. I've bought an ESP, and it was, pretty clearly the wrong ESP. And I found that out within 6 months of buying it, and trying to integrate it with our CRM, which was very painful. I just wish that I hadn't have done that, but you don't know until you actually buy it, unfortunately. So CM Group, because we offer 7 products, you can come in, you could buy Campaign Monitor, and you could find that that's not the right platform for you. But we could easily migrate you to one of our other 6 platforms. So there's no need to kind of break your contract or go through a painful RFP process. When you use one of the products in our group, we can either add to it, or migrate you between those products, which is kind of the key benefit of CM Group, and why customers would buy from us.
Okay, interesting. So somebody may be sort of come to you and say, "Hey, I'm on product X, but I need this, this, and this." It's a lot more seamless for you to migrate them over to a suitable platform, because of the integratedness of CM Group and how you guys are approaching it to make things sort of as cross-platform as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to say it's all automated. We just push one button and
Yeah.
you're instantly on the other
Bing.
platform. It's not
Yeah.
quite like that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yet that's kind of like I guess, a long-term vision. But because we work together, we know we can easily migrate data. We can migrate templates. We can train you. If you want to migrate to a different company, uh, or if you want to migrate between 2 different companies, they don't help each other. Like, you're kind of in the middle, and you've got to, it's painful to try to get your data out, get your templates out, re-upload them. Um, because we are one company, we can seamlessly do that because we have access to these 7 platforms that offer different types of functionality.
That's so
Um,
interesting. And I feel like that's very customer centric because, the pain of having to migrate. I feel like you guys are trying to really solve that with this CM Group. So what are some of those things that people normally say when it's an ESP is not working? Is it the integration? Are there any sort of obviously every scenario is different from the next, but do you see sort of the top 3 reasons why people want to, move, or that why are those 28% of people dissatisfied?
we see, there's 2 different angles. There's people that want to move up from kind of the more self-service platforms, like the Mailchimps or Constant Contacts. They're typically complaining about things like support, like it's hard to get through to support, or I've had the deliverability issue, or been shut down for some reason. Um, it's typically why they're looking to move off of those platforms. There might be small things like, oh, I can't do something in my template,
Right.
or like some small feature or functionality that they don't have, and that's why they want to move. Or it could be an integration. But from the top end, like the marketing clouds, you also see customers moving down to products like Campaign Monitor. That happens much more frequently than you might
Okay.
think. Again, that could be because of support. It could be because they feel like they're paying too much for what they're actually using. They might just
Hmm.
need to send emails, and they're paying for like personalization and SMS and all these other kind of bolt-on features that they don't actually use. Um, and so they just feel like they're overspending on their marketing technology. So we can help them there as well.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds like there's a lot of different scenarios, and within the products, as I said before, there's a lot of options for people out there. So, um, I think one thing we haven't really touched upon in this podcast so far is email marketing as a whole. And you've seen iterations and changes along the way. So it'd be great to hear a little bit about some of those changes you've seen, and also where do you see email marketing going over the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah. I had to think about this question a lot. I'd say the you know I've been in this industry 10 years, so thinking way back, responsive design was probably like the biggest thing, and the rise of mobile devices, I'd say, is probably the biggest thing that's impacted the industry in the last 10 years.
Okay.
Something that, like, people probably think that that's lame. Like, of course, that's so obvious, but I think it's the thing that really is pervasive. Like, every email now has got to be mobile responsive. Like, I don't even remember the last time I got an email that wasn't optimized for my iPhone.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
back in the day getting the desktop version on your iPhone. It's like I had to
yeah, you gotta like
zoom in.
try to, yeah, exactly. So that's something that, like, I think changed all emails and kind of changed email design completely. Um, I think interactive elements are starting to get a bit more traction. Obviously, I think you guys probably build a lot of interactive emails these days.
Yeah, a
I think
ton.
at first, I think it was a little bit gimmicky. Hopefully, you don't think that's unfair, but I think there were just some things that people would do for the sake of making them interactive. I think today people are thinking a lot more about how can I kind of improve the subscriber experience with interactive elements. It could be a quiz or a poll or a way to capture additional data on the subscriber through interactive, or just some way to improve their experience with interactive elements. So I'm really enjoying receiving those in my inbox, and I think that's I've had a big improvement on the industry in general. And then I think accessibility is another like uh, big trend that I'm really happy to see. So just thinking about how does the email look on a screen reader, or if someone's blind and they can't read an email properly, like on their iPhone, like regularly, how's it going to look for them? Can they read what the images say? Can they read the HTML text properly? Um, that's a big trend which I've also noticed.
Yeah, and I'm not an email marketing guy. I'm more from a paid media SEO kind of background. But one thing, since we merged, last year to become Uplas, I became a lot more exposed to email, and one of the big challenges that I saw is just the wealth of media types that. Each email can be so different from the next, and phone X cannot read it, and browser X can't read it. So there's so many variables compared to other channels. So I feel like there's more complexity probably coming through over time, and more different types. So that seems to align with what you're saying there. And I guess piggybacking off that is, where do you see things going? You obviously mentioned about interactivity. That's something we're doing. We're doing sort of little games. We did a maze thing recently for Easter. We did something cool for Warner Brothers and Annabelle Creation kind of thing, which was really cool. But from your perspective, someone who's in there in the thick of it, what's on the horizon?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's hard to predict what's going to happen, but obviously, artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to, I think, exponentially get faster and faster and start to impact marketing technology a lot more. I think we're going to start to see kind of more content and kind of predictive sending
Yep.
in the future. We can do that today. I think it's just going to get a lot more sophisticated, a lot more complex, and I think the products are going to get a lot more complex. Not for the user, but just on the back end. I think they're going to start getting a lot smarter with what they can do. I also think there's going to be, a lot of merging between technologies. I don't know if you're familiar with customer data platforms, CDPs.
No.
Uh, but they're a new type of platform in the last few years. It's kind of like I think of it like a CRM for your B2C business. So
Okay.
instead of using Salesforce, you use a CDP to kind of figure out who your best customers are, and
Right.
kind of what they're doing on your website and what you should serve on the website and in email and in other channels. So those platforms are now starting to offer the ability to send SMS and emails and push notifications and I think just the line between all these different marketing technologies is starting to blur. And so, I don't know if in the future you'll have an ESP. It'll just be kind of like a marketing hub, and it will kind of do a lot of different things and take data from a lot of different places. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, and I think that definitely makes sense to me. But I guess the danger here, and well, not a danger, but something to be aware of is, as we were talking about before with Mailchimp, are they stretching a little bit too far to go into websites? Maybe it's going to work great, but then Mailchimp becomes something else. Obviously, a lot of these platforms are going to transition and change and take on more, or strip back, and there's sort of a lot of disruption to the market. It seems on the way in your opinion.
yeah, definitely. I mean, Mailchimp's big enough that they could make a mistake and they'll be fine probably.
Yeah.
But I think the like smaller platforms and kind of new platforms that come to the market, what we are noticing is there's a lot more specialization. So no one's going to come out with kind of a general email marketing platform like Campaign Monitor. Like no one would do that. They would come out with an email marketing platform aimed at like nonprofits
Niche.
in Australia and New Zealand. Like it would be
Gotcha.
super niche, and it would have like really niche integrations, and it would have automated journeys that are kind of related to the data that comes through the integration. So I think we're just going to see a lot more niche platforms come out in the next few years, and probably a lot of the bigger platforms come out with kind of more niche solutions themselves.
And just one final thing is, it was when within that complexity you mentioned before, all these data points and sending out, person X reads blog and then they get this, or they trigger, the tripwires and then XYZ happens. Within that complexity, do you think there's also going to be more of a simplicity in terms of the front end user face? Like, I don't necessarily have to be an AI crazy expert, but I can just set up these automation flows very, very quickly and get it to that level of customization for my business. So it feels integrated into my messaging.
Yeah, 100%. I think that'll be a lot easier to implement. I think some platforms make it fairly easy today, but there's still a lot of room for improvement, and there's still typically some kind of coding involved when you're initially implementing these things. So I think it's going to be a lot easier and faster to implement. And then I think you're not going to have a large team with expert coders and developers to actually kind of use platforms that can kind of do this type of personalization. I don't know when that'll be. That might be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in the future. But yeah, that's kind of where I see the industry going.
Well, we'll be waiting to see it, I'm sure. Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure picking your brains and finding out a little bit more about behind the scenes of Campaign Monitor and CM Group. Just signing off, is there anything you'd like anyone to know, or any upcoming things for Campaign Monitor or anything of that effect?
Just check out CM Group, check out Campaign Monitor. As I said, we're fairly new. You might not have heard of us, so take a look at the brands we have and give us a shout if you have any questions.
Yeah, as I said, definitely go check it out. Listeners at home, it is a great platform and one at Upwards we use often. Andrew, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope we speak again soon.
Me too. Thanks, George.
Cheers. Bye.